feedback that they've gotten about?
I believe it will lead to a lot. We are already moving forward on our SB2 grant money with a form-based code. That contract came to you a few meetings ago. That will create the basis for a specific plan along Monterey. It doesn't fund the entire effort, but it lays a base for that. Having that PDA established up and down Monterey gives us a chance to get the rest of the funds for that specific plan, which Council indicated they desired to see happen. However, the funding at the time was unavailable. And so it gives us another way to achieve that. With the PDA expansion, we have until 2025 to finish a specific plan, which we could do even without the funding at a staff level over that long of a span of time. So it gives us a chance not only to create a specific plan in the future for Monterey, but it also enables us to update the downtown specific plan as part of this overall PDA. And what we're seeing now is with the dated version of our specific plan for downtown, there are some updates that are needed and would be able to be achieved as part of this entire project.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Martinez Beltran?
Thank you, Mayor. I too had some hesitations on this as I was talking about it, and for many of the reasons that Renee was just sharing with us, or Council, Mayor Pro Tem, pardon me. I do think it is the elephant in the room. I think that we should talk about it. And so that's one of the reasons I didn't wanted to kind of have that discussion here. I don't want us to hinder ourselves before we even get the project. And I think sometimes, you know, we can do that not knowingly. And so if we just kind of have that discussion, then I think it might be a little bit more heated, but I think it's a good one to have. This is obviously an Achilles heel for us. We all know what's happening with the Trammell Crow, and people are very concerned about it. And so let's talk about it, and let's continue to talk about it so that people can be more comfortable with that. And yes, we have some distribution here. I sat down with staff this week and was interested to find out where that is, and they were great in explaining. I didn't even know that we had some of these distribution centers, and I think some people don't know. And so that's another opportunity for us to kind of share kind of what already exists in our community. But I do also, I see it as the tool that you're explaining, and I understand the reason why it might be advantageous for us to seek this label, if you will, because what I'm hearing is that it's an option for us to have that grant funding, that it's a protective tool that we will, like it or not, have to have our lands competed with once the housing really comes down. And so if we can somehow, as my girls would say, put a magic shield on it.
Ms. Martinez Beltran, can you ask your question?
Yes, I will get to my question, I'm sorry. So one of them is, on the resolution writing, you talked about that there was an option of the description and we could take it out. Maybe if we could just have light distribution or light industrial in there, is that something that we would be able to do? Would we be able to remove just the industrial piece rather than, I guess if we could have a little bit more clarity, I think maybe we could have a little more buy-in on that. Is that an option, Dawn, on the resolution? Is that something, if it's an application that we're filling out, do we have any leeway?
So I think we're not going to be able to change the definition of what
because they've defined it.
Because they've defined it. So taking it out doesn't change that definition. I wouldn't want to rewrite the definition. I think if the council's inclined to take it out, but I wouldn't want us to rewrite the definition and run the risk that they'll say, well, what you want to do is something different, so we're not going to accept your application.
Okay, and are we able to provide anything supplemental to that application?
So the application itself, I'll go back to the form. The requirement is a concentration or cluster of industrial uses or activities engaged in production, manufacturing, distribution, goods movement, or repair, not and. So if the sensitivity to the word distribution is significant, we can remove that. But the fact of the matter is, it's already there. So that's the only reason why we included it, because we do have those uses in the city and in these areas that are would be covered by a PPA. But for the purposes of the reso, we don't have to necessarily reflect the form language. But the form language doesn't require the distribution. We're recognizing that we already have it in the city.
I understand that. I think it's just for this is for a future designation, and so since we're talking about the future designation, if we could.
But the future designation is just for industrial areas. It's such as these types of uses, so we're just putting it over our industrial parks and our industrial zones. And it's a semantic issue. We can remove distribution from the resolution. It doesn't harm the resolution in any way. But all it's reflecting is the language that's already in the application and what represents a PPA.
Okay, well, if there's opposition to doing a light distribution, then I would move that we adopt the resolution striking the word distribution.
I have a question. Yes. And we're still in the question phase. We can't make motions yet because I still have to open it for public comment.
Okay.
Great. Let's see, most of my questions have already been asked. I've got a couple left. One is, who uses this document?
That's a
Two
very
people
good
in the whole
question.
world, or?
It is so when you think about the role of Bay Area Metro, which is the organization, they set, so the document helps provide guidance on a few different things. So one is, and you'll be seeing this very soon as it relates to housing, is California HCD sets the regional housing number, and it's the Plan Bay Area document that actually distributes how much housing to each jurisdiction. It distributes where they believe the job growth is going to be in the community. So then that becomes really a document as it relates to funding that comes in that they're passing out related to transportation projects, housing, and things of that nature. So as local governments, we pay attention to it, but it really becomes a document that helps manage funding distribution and allocation of housing and other transportation-related needs.
Okay, so it's safe to say that this is for institutional use, not for use by developers,
Absolutely not.
marketing managers, anything like that. So this is something that typically is a tool used within
Government.
this institution. Okay.
If I can add a really important point, nothing in this document supersedes local control at all. In fact, ABAG, MTC are very clear. We have no power over local government.
Yeah, and that would be another part of my question, which is any part of this binding?
No. There have been other cities that have passed these resolutions that have said that they will rescind it if these different things happen. If they felt like they got more RENA numbers because of it, which is not the case, and ABAC has said that's not connected at all. But people we have had cities that will say, we'll pull out if we don't like the way things are going.
And that was another question I had, and that is that if down the road we find out that this is unsatisfactory for this community, we can just say, you know what, you're using it wrong, or pull us out of it. So that works for me. The next thing is right now I think the discussion has been thrown around that, we have this development pressure for residential. And what you're saying, I guess, is that this document will help in the minds of the different government agencies that tend to approach us, or we approach them, that the intent of this use of this land is not to be residential, and it does help harden our commercial industrial land preservation.
We're looking for any tool that can help us point to, nope, this land is industrial, it's protected, we don't want to see it change. And this is one method that we think will help to do that. As we talked before, we do expect that our next RENA assignment will be large, that the distribution of it will be challenging given the new rules for the housing element process. And so we see this as an opportunity to help protect those lands from entities that are saying, oh no, you have vacant industrial land, you should convert that for residential.
Any questions? All right, thank you. I'll now open this up to public comment.
First speaker I have is Joe Baranowski.
Mrs. Baranowski?
First of all, thank you, council members, for listening and taking this out of consent. We just heard one of the speakers say we're telling the world what Morgan Hill's kind of strategic initiatives are. And this is going to be thrown out in a consent thing, which, to my understanding, the first time that the public would have seen this document was when it was posted a few days ago. I mean, that's incredible, right? Secondly, I don't oppose the PDA part. There's broad participation in all 7 counties, many cities, and it's a well-proven program. And I certainly don't oppose what is true, that one of the main objectives is to focus on mid-wage jobs. I think that's incredibly important. I find it incredible is that the explanation for why we've included so many parcels which are commercial, currently commercial, was because it was just convenient. And look at the right side. How is it more convenient to add this huge chunk of land that's not zone industrial? This to me is just part and parcel with what's happening exactly at Trammell Crow. We've already assumed that Trammell Crow, that big swath of commercial land. So there is no policy written in the zoning code, in the general plan, in the economic blueprint that suggests that we should adopt this accelerated rezoning of all this commercial land to industrial, and yet that's what we're representing here. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you've drawn it parcel by parcel, so just draw it accurately. If we're going to submit something, draw it accurately. Second, the last point I'll make is that this distribution, Councilman Spring, is not a word. That's not what the concern is. If it was just a word, I wouldn't be up here, and I wouldn't be spending all my time fighting this. Most of the genesis of this proposal, which is the pilot, is contained in this 69-page report that I tried to get through a good part of it today. There is no doubt that the focus on this is not the just as, such as. If it was such as, and our real focus on advanced manufacturing, we weren't forced to put the answer in here that focus on the last mile distribution. That was Jennifer's choice. Just why did we say that we're focused on advanced manufacturing? And look at the cities, the 3 cities, there's only 3 cities in Santa Clara County that apply to this. Look where they are. We're becoming a Milpitas, where Amazon just went in. Look at the example that the authors themselves referred to as, that happened in San Leandro. They use this as a good thing. Warehouse and distribution business cause heavy wear on local streets through truck traffic delivery, but generate relatively few jobs and limited business license, revenue, or sales tax. And yet they point to that as something that the San Leandro made it easier to do that as an example of why we should hang our hat on this PPA. Maybe this all will work out. It needs to be much more well thought out. It needs to get public input. Taking it out of the consent calendar was a good first step. This needs to be rethought. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baranowski. Any other speakers?
The next speaker I have is John Horner.
I just think we're trying to get to the same place, but we're speaking a little bit different language. You're speaking a lot of planning language, you're speaking a lot of economic development language, and I really do believe that the staff is using all of the tools that they can to deal with this housing piece. I'll admit, the map maybe should have been more designated. To their defense, we've been trying to get on board with 330 before it decimates us. So that's where we're at. That's the reality of where we're at. Maybe it can be better, the next time around. On the resident side, I understand the fear and the concern, because we do need to be responsible and clear in what we're saying. So if we're saying that it's going to be last mile or it's going to be distribution, we need to clarify that. And no, this isn't something that maybe document that everybody's going to use, but maybe a year down the road, we'll have a presentation, and at some point, someone will say, well, you know, can this be zoned here or that? And somehow a PPA has a PPA designation which describes it such as, and then all of these listings will be. And I think that that's the fear that people are having. So let's just be clear. I would go back and move that we either move it to light distribution or we remove distribution. Nobody is saying that we don't want to have the PPA. I think we understand why. Maybe somebody is saying they don't, someone is saying that. I don't know. I'm not saying that. All I can say is I think I understand why we want an option to get great funding. We want it to be this protective shield. This could possibly help in funding for mitigating traffic down the road if we need to do that, or any kind of enhancements that we need for a project. And then also looking at our density and where we're forced to place that density is also something critical that we need to do. And this is a tool that can help us do that. So I definitely think we could do that if we could. Maybe that would be my motion, if we could either put light distribution or strike distribution, clarify this distribution.
So your motion is to strike distribution and light industrial. That's your motion?
My motion is I'm asking for my colleagues what they would prefer. I would be
You're making the motion, so we have the second, so what's your motion?
Okay, then I will move that we adopt the resolution and that we strike distribution from the resolution.
Okay, we have three items can we adopt the resolution with one vote, or do we have to take the three recommendations separately?
Yeah, you can do it as one vote.
Okay, so there's a motion on the table, is there a second?
May I clarify? There are two resolutions, so which resolution are we striking distribution from?
It's the priority production area one.
Okay, so the first resolution.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, I'll second that.
okay, the second, there's a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I want to be on the record, and maybe we'll have to do it sometimes offline at the workshop, or sometimes I feel sorry for our staff too, right? They use certain languages, we use certain languages, and we don't always mean the same. Or we don't know what by saying, we're using certain words, we don't know what we cause, or what we mean. And I think we need to clarify a little bit. I think we need to look at certain areas within our city. What is it that we really want? What is it that we had so far that went well, and maybe what we had so far that didn't work so well? And in that clarification, and I can bring it up as a future agenda item, but I mentioned it verbally now. I think that one is needed too. And I really appreciate the public comments too. I don't always see every detail either, and then sometimes eye-opening and helps to understand how people see what we're doing, and we might not have caused or wanted to cause certain reactions, but we did, and there's nothing wrong to admit that. So I think with the discussion tonight and some corrections, I wish we would have seen the form before it got submitted to make sure that didn't go. I understand that's too late to fix, but we're on record tonight that we should have fixed it.
Any other discussion? So I have one comment. I think we need to be careful when we try and wordsmith things. As staff has mentioned, the words are meant because of what they truly are. And I think we are in a slippery slope if we try and modify what we say because it may invoke rage from the public, for lack of a better term. I think we have an obligation to be as transparent as possible. And if the designation allows for distribution, we should say, we should let the public know that. We shouldn't try and hide the fact that there is distribution that would be allowed there. And then we can have the discussion on how much distribution we should have there. So I would just ask my colleagues to be very careful when they try and stick the finger in the air and say, well, this word is going to cause heartburn to people, so we shouldn't use it. If that's what it is, then we should call it that so that the public knows, and if they have an issue, that they can come before us and discuss it, just like we're doing now. So I don't like when we try and wordsmith things, because again, I think we have an obligation to be as transparent, to let the public know exactly what we are going to be discussing, rather than try and hide it because we think it might make somebody upset. So if there's no other discussion, I'll go ahead and call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Okay, that motion does not carry because it does not get the majority. Is there another motion?
I move to approve the resolution as stated.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, so we're not going to go anywhere with this.
Might I recommend that in the resolution, we just strike the words after activities, so we would end with industrial activities and strike such as production, advanced manufacturing, distribution, or related activities.
That doesn't remove, for me, that doesn't remove my issue, which is again, transparency, letting people know exactly what this would allow. So that doesn't change it. That wouldn't change my vote, but I'll ask for if anyone wants to make a motion on that.
Can you reread that, please? Yeah, so this is the whereas that is really just defining priority production area as it's identified by the entity that, issues these, issues this. So it's, right now, you want me to read the whole thing again?
What you just read.
So it's a priority production area must meet all of the following criteria. A, within an existing community. B, zoned for industrial use. C, have a high concentration of industrial activities. And then there's a phrase that says such as production, advanced manufacturing, distribution or related activities. We can strike after such as because it's solely just furthering the definition of priority production area. And if we do that, it might be a happy medium so that we don't risk out on not getting potential funds.
Okay. Yeah, I can make that motion. I don't think this is about being transparent or not being transparent. I think it's about what we want to see the future of our city. And if we don't want it to be high distribution, then this is where we're starting to designate that. And we can have more conversation. I absolutely think we should future. So I would make that motion to strike, as our city manager has suggested, just after such as, which reads production, advanced manufacturing, distribution, or related activities from the resolution, please.
Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second?
Okay, I'm going to second for discussion.
And now discussion.
Okay, so, this kind of debate saddens me, because I believe that what we're doing is we're trying to address an issue that's in the public, which is a very legitimate issue, which I think should be addressed. I don't think this is where we address it. I think the mayor has said that all it does is hide what the rest of the, basically what the rest of the understanding means. I will go with it because I would like to just get this passed through. The form is already